What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. Today for you, I've got the UFC Vegas 77 matchmaking video. There were some good fights on this card. The beginning of it started pretty slow. I'd say overall it was an okay card. Some cool performances from guys like Azat. I guess it was a close fight, but it was just cool to see him get a win in his debut. Melquizael Costa looking really good. Prado getting a win. Basel Hafez doing very well on short notice versus JDM. So these are the guys I've made some matchups for. Yeah, let's get into this first one. As at Maxum, like I said, he came off of he's coming off of this win versus Tyson Nam. Tyson Nam is not a guy you throw to somebody off the bat that you aren't pretty high on. So this is a guy, and I mean, if you've watched tape on him, and obviously if you've just watched this fight versus Tyson Nam, you know he's a pretty solid fighter. So and you've got to give him another good fight. Like you can't toss him to somebody he's gonna smoke, because there probably are some guys lower in this division that he would probably run through pretty quickly. So another kind of up and coming prospect who just recently got his first win in the UFC. I think he would make a great matchup for Azat, kind of battle of the prospects and see who gets to progress on first, kind of, because I have a feeling they'll both end up doing decent. I mean, who knows how far they'll go, but Carlos Hernandez, he had a really good win versus Dennis Bondar. He looked really good in all three rounds. He may have dropped a round in the fight, but over 3 rounds looked really good. Defended takedowns well when Bondar shot them. Looked really good on the feet. He has really good boxing. His hands are. He might not have the most power. I think he did hurt Bondar though. Typically he's not known for like his power striking, but he's pretty quick, and he's got good hands, throws good combinations. I think this would be a fun matchup versus Azat. Azat looked solid versus Tyson Nam. There were some spots where you saw he's hittable, and Tyson Nam was able to work his leg kick really well. So it'll just I think this is an interesting matchup. It'll be good to see both of these guys go versus another prospect, and like I said, gets to see who kind of progresses on first. Next up, Evan Elder. He needs a little bit of a step up, and I think because who has he fought? Let me pull it up real quick. I have the card right here on my phone. He's fought Preston Parsons in his debut, up a weight class on short notice. That's a tough matchup. He wasn't able to get it done there. He comes out, fights Nazim Sadykhov, who I have a matchup for in a second, but beat Evan Elder. Looked good versus Terrence McKinney. After that first round, got the submission win, and looked good in his Contender Series fight. So that's a good fighter. Evan Elder was looking good early versus Nazim on all 3 judges' scorecards. Was up 2-0. Nazim is able to slice him open with a knee, I'm pretty sure it was, and the referee had to stop it. They thought the cut was too bad, and Evan couldn't continue. So he was probably on his way to a decision win, but Nazim did well to get the cut there. So I think this is a spot where you can progress him a little bit. Like I said, there was a good chance he was going to get that win versus Nazim. So we know he's a solid fighter, a solid prospect. And I think somebody, again, who just fought recently, a little bit more recent than Carlos Hernandez, I believe, but looked good. Another prospect. I think we go Esteban Ribovics. He just beat, I wish I could remember. Hold up, I can look him up real quick. Esteban Ribovics. He just won pretty recently. It was versus Kemwella Kirk, just a couple weeks ago. That's right. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but yeah, he looked good versus Kemwella Kirk. Kemwella won the first round with the grappling, so I think that's a spot where if Evan Elder pushes his wrestling, he might be able to have some success. But Ribovic's good on the feet, and I think on the feet this would be a fun matchup because both guys are able to be hit, but both pack some decent power and are solid strikers. So yeah, I think this would be a fun one to make, and it's kind of the same. I won't say I guess you could say Battle of the Prospects. They're two decent guys. Battle of the up-and-coming fighters, for sure, though. Again, a spot to see who gets to progress first. Next up, we've got Melquizael Costa. He's coming off of a really good performance versus Austin Lingo. It was pretty dominant for him. He was able to use his Muay Thai really well. Good kicks to the body. Did some good work with the hands as well. Good leg kicks. Went to the head, too, with the kicks. I really like his kicks to all three levels. Didn't really have to get the jiu-jitsu going. We know how good his jiu-jitsu is, but like I said, it was mostly a Muay Thai clinic, I'd say. Another guy that got a win on this card, Melsik Bagdasaryan. That's who I would match him up with. I think he just fought Tucker Lutz on this card. It was a decent win for him. It wasn't like a spectacular performance or anything, but he did the job, got the job done. Win versus Tucker Lutz, it's a spot where it's two younger prospects. I think Melsik's just over 30 and Melquizael's just under 30, if I'm not mistaken. Two guys in good spots where and they have the Brazil card coming up. I think this would be a fun one for the Brazil card, but it would just be a good spot for either of them to get a win and progress. Whoever wins on their resume, it'll be a decent win versus an up-and-coming prospect to kind of push them on. They're both young in their careers, so I don't see why not match them up, throw them on that Brazil card, and it would be a fun matchup. Interesting to see how Melsik would deal with the jiu-jitsu from Melquizael Costa, because I do think, obviously, on the feet, Melsik would pose a tougher threat than Austin Lingo did. So it would be interesting to see how early or if Melquizael would have to go to the jiu-jitsu and how Melsik would be able to deal with it. But yeah, like I said, fun fight. Throw that on the Brazil card. Next up, T-Rex. He just lost to Nazim Sadikov, who I've got a matchup for as well. I think I've actually got two names for him, just like I've got two names for T-Rex as well. I think he's in a spot now where he needs to fight a guy where he can get a win. And obviously, no matter who he fights, it's not a guaranteed win, but just a guy that it's a favorable matchup. And obviously, there are no super, sure thing, easy matchups, but I just think there's spots where, like I said, it would be good for T-Rex to get the win. Gabriel Benitez, we saw him have trouble with the power of David Onama, so it'd be interesting to see how he would deal with T-Rex. I believe Benitez is coming off of a win not too long ago. I can't remember how long ago. It might have been end of last year, earlier this year. But I made these matchups, and I'm pretty sure it was Benitez and the first matchup I have for Sadikov. They're both pulled out of fights recently with injuries, if I'm not mistaken, so that's why I made two matchups. If he can't go, or to be honest, I wouldn't be mad if they just went with this one. I think this is also a good option. Trevor Peek, this would be a banger. McKinney could go to the wrestling, but Trevor Peek kind of just has that stand-up takedown defense. I mean, he can defend takedowns okay early in the first, but once he starts getting taken down and they're a little deeper into the fight, he can get held down. So that would be interesting. And on the feet, these guys are just going to swing wild. They both have big power. I'd say Trevor Peek at this point in his career is a little more durable. This would be a banger you could throw on, what is it, the feature prelim of any card, and it would be a really fun way to end the prelims. Banger fight. Next up, Nazim Sadikov just beat Terrence McKinney, like I talked about, was able to get the submission. He's a really good prospect. I like him a lot. Looked good on Contender Series. Got that first win versus Evan Elder. Was able to find a way to get it done in the third round after he was down 2-0 on all three judges' scorecards. Obviously, he didn't know that in the moment, but was able to get it done in the third. I think you match him up. You take a step up in the level that he's fought at so far, and I think Nasrat Haqparast would be a good way. And like I said, he just pulled out of a fight recently, with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. So I do have another guy for him. But striking-wise, this would be quite a fun matchup. We know Haqparast has solid power in the left hand, and he's a decent striker overall. He struggled with the wrestling at times, and Sadykhov trains at Law MMA. He's pretty well-rounded, and we know how good his striking is as well. So I think this would be a fun matchup, and like I said, it's just a step up. If Haqparast isn't healthy anytime soon, like before the end of this year, if he can't get into the cage, I think you could go with Joe Solecki. He just fought. His last win was Carl Deaton, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure it was Carl Deaton. And he didn't take any damage. It was a dominant win. Let's see. Yeah. So he just beat Carl Deaton. I say this would be fine because, like I said, it's a step up for Sadykhov. Before this win for Solecki, he had just beaten Alex Da Silva, so he's on a fight, or a little run of 2 fights where it's not the highest level of guys, Carl Deaton and Alex Da Silva. Alex Da Silva's a decent prospect. He's a younger guy, if I'm not mistaken, but we haven't seen him since. I don't know what the plan is with him, but it's a step up for both guys and a spot for a prospect to move on. It would be really interesting to see how Sadykhov deals with the grappling from Solecki, and if Sadykhov's able to stuff takedowns, how he would fare on the feet with Sadykhov. Next up, the Iron Turtle, coming off of a big win versus Duraev. I missed the first round, but I came in for the second round. He was able to get takedowns, had Albert Duraev in danger a couple times, where he wasn't able to find the tap, and then he does get the tap. It was at least in the second round. I think actually I might have saw a little bit at the end of the first as well. But good performance from Jin Young Park. He's on a 4-fight win streak, 3 of them being the 4-fight win streak, the last 3 being submissions. So yeah, another good spot where a guy can take a step up, and he's right outside the rankings at this point. Another guy who's outside the rankings because of, obviously he beat a good guy, but he's a little bit earlier into his UFC career. Big name behind him, Joe Pyfer. I think whoever wins this matchup, they can get their first ranked fight next. Pyfer being a young, big name prospect, and Jin Young Park, a guy who's been in the UFC for a decent bit of time now. Let me see how many fights he has. But regardless, I think, like I said, whoever wins can get that spot in the rankings. So yeah, Jin Young Park has quite a few fights in the UFC now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 fights. So different career path, but they're both at this point, right? Like I said, I think they're both right outside the rankings. Fun fight. Big spot for either guy to get a win and make that push towards the rankings. Next up, Francisco Prado. He got this win versus Otman Azaitar. I talked about it a little bit in the recap video. I thought it was an early stoppage, but I will say, I'll say like the tiniest bit of an early stoppage. But also what I said in that recap, I don't think it matters. He was on his way to a stoppage in the end, so I think in the moment it was a bit early, but if it had gone on 30 more seconds, maybe even 20, he would have found the finish, in my opinion. So it doesn't really affect the outcome. But young guy, I believe he's only 21 years old. He lost his first fight, short notice debut, wins his second fight. He's moving up a weight class now. He talked about it a little bit at the end of his fight during the post-fight press conference, and he said something about it in the cage afterwards as well. But yeah, moving up to 170, a guy who needs a win. I believe he's on a 2-fight losing streak. It could be 3, but I'm pretty sure it's 2. Gabe Green just got knocked out by Bryan Battle pretty quick. I think it was under 20 seconds. It was like 15 seconds into the fight. Gabe Green walked across the arena and just started throwing bombs, and Bryan Battle obliged and was able to land harder and first. So Prado, I thought it was an interesting move because he's not the biggest guy. I think he's like 5'8", So moving up, or 5'9" maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, a spot where Prado's debuting, fighting a guy that'll give him a good matchup on the feet, and Prado is okay on the ground. Gabe Green's also decent on the ground, but both mainly strikers. So I think this would be a fun first fight for Prado. Gabe Green needs a win. Spot where both guys can get a win, especially if they just bang it out. Next up, oh, all right, I didn't even put the delay on his opponent, but Basil Hafez looked really good versus JDM in a loss. Some people are still arguing Basel won, but even though they were close rounds and the fight was close, I think the two that JDM won, he won them pretty clearly. On damage, when it was on the feet, he was doing really good work. But he looked good versus JDM. I know JDM had just had 2 weight cuts, but it was also short notice for Hafez. UFC debut versus a ranked fighter, co-main event. That's a tough spot to take, and he did really well. Put the judges to a split decision, I do believe. And yeah, I don't think he needs to build all the way from the bottom of the UFC rankings. I mean, you could give him a bottom guy, but he probably runs over them. So I think you toss him somebody that's kind of in the middle of the pack. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he was on a little, it might have been like 2 or 3 wins in a row. Let me look it up so I'm not saying random things. But oh wait, hold up. Let's see. It's right here. So before this last loss, okay, it's 2 fights. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it was 2 or 3, but I couldn't remember and I didn't want to say without being right. But 2-fight win streak, comes out, loses to Eliseo Zaleski on a split decision. It was a pretty close fight, but I agreed with the decision, the way the judges went. I think this would be a good fight. It'll, on a full camp, it'll really test where Basil's at, because like I said, JDM was depleted. He had 2 weight cuts in a row. Who knows how that affected him. And Abubakar's a tough guy. He's not a guy that Hafez can run over, most likely. I mean, maybe he does. Who knows? It's fighting. But I would assume not. It's somebody who'll give him a tough test and really, on a full camp, see where he's at in the division. Next up, we have JDM. I'm not going to say too much about this one. I already talked about the way the fight went down. I think you just run back this matchup. It was scheduled. Brady had to pull out with an injury whenever he's ready, because JDM will need a little time off. He took some big shots. Not too much damage, but took a little bit, so he'll need a bit of time to recover. And whenever Sean Brady's healthy, I think you just run this back, because who knows really how good Hafez is as a grappler, because we haven't seen him versus a bunch of top competition. We know how good Sean Brady's grappling is. He's done it versus some good guys. So who knows how Brady would handle that. Sean Brady, on the other hand, gets finished on the feet by Bilal Muhammad. Who knows how he would deal with JDM's striking. So there's spots where both guys can do good work. You might as well remake this matchup. Next up, Holly Holm. This one, I would say, was an easy spot. There's no reason to kind of keep her floating around in this top 5 forever. Let's move her on, fight her versus somebody who just got a win, is coming up the division a bit, Karol Rosa. She's on a little streak, I do believe. Again, I'm going to look it up because I don't want to just say things. Karol Rosa, let's see, she's on... Okay, so not a streak, but she's won a few fights. She's 2 of her last 3. She beat Lena Landsberg, then lost to Dumont. Now she beat Yana Santos, who was ranked above her, so she moves up. Holly Holm has to fight down, defend her spot. If she can defend her spot, good on her at this point in her career. But I think, yeah, she definitely needs to defend that spot versus somebody that's coming up. I think Karol Rosa is a good person to do it against. Last fight of the night to make, Mayra Bueno Silva. I think There are a few options. Like you could do Raquel Pennington. I mean, who knows if the Ronda Rousey rumors, that was hard to say, are real. I'm not sure. I don't know if I care to see it. Who knows how she would look? Like I said, I don't know if I care to see it. But I think you go with the winner of this fight that's coming up, and it's kind of like the next title shot because it's probably going to be Pena versus Pennington for the vacant belt, unless something crazy happens and Ronda comes back. Who knows? But I'm kind of just not thinking about that in this situation. You match her up versus the winner of this fight, and that fight is for the next title shot, I would say. I know Mayra Bueno Silva was on Ariel saying she's just going to wait for the title shot. She wants the title shot next, and maybe they give it to her, who knows. But I would assume they go Pennington Pena, and then you can run the winner of Ketlen Vieira, Pannie Kianzad versus Bueno Silva for the next title shot. So yeah, that's all for matchups today. No predictions video this week. I forgot I'm going to be out of town, so I don't have that. But right after I'm done recording this, I'm going to record a Bellator versus UFC video, and I'll have that out tomorrow instead. So yeah, check out yesterday's recap video if you haven't seen it yet. Like this one and subscribe. See you tomorrow. Peace.